Oh, yeah, thank you. I was wondering you did that. Thank you. In that big package, it was.
All right. So we'll get started today. We'll get started by reading. I'm going to stand up here.
Rabbi Jim?
Although, let's see. Well,
Can anyone
stuck
hear
here.
me?
All right, I'm stuck here, but that's what we'll be here. Okay, so we'll speak today about the book of Jonah, and it's great to see everybody. Thank you all for coming, and we will get started. We are on page
Rabbi Jim?
367.
Rabbi Jim, can you hear me?
67. And this is the Haftarah for Yom Kippur that we read in the afternoon, the book of Jonah. And I'm sorry I don't have a Russian translation with me, but I'll try to do maybe a little bit of translation, but not a lot because it gets a little hairy. But I thought what we would do is that we would read the book, and as we go through, feel free to stop, to ask questions, to make comments, and the overarching question, I think that is worth asking every year is why do we read this on Yom Kippur? Why is this
Rabbi Jim, can you hear me?
On the afternoon of Yom Kippur? And there's many answers to that question. I think so. It's always interesting to
Rabbi Jim, can you hear me?
ones. All right. So Vayhi davar Adonai el Yonah ben Amitai lemor. So the word of God came to Jonah, the great prophet.
Rabbi Jim, can you hear me?
Go at once to Nineveh,
Can you hear me?
that great city, and proclaim judgment upon it, for their wickedness has come before me. All right, so what I'll do is let me find it in Russian. We'll see a few of these sentences in Russian as well. Okay. И было слово Господня к Йоне, сыну Амафину. Встань, иди на Ниневию, город великий, и проповедуй в нем, ибо злодеяния его дошли до меня. So that their wickedness, right? Their wickedness has come before God. But what did Jonah do? Jonah, however, started to flee to Tarshish from Adonai's service. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. He paid the fare and went aboard to sail with the others to Tarshish, away from the service of Adonai. Right? Why would Jonah run away? Да, такую страницу, да. И вот я читал по-русски. И встал Йона, чтобы бежать в Тарсис от лица Господня, и пришел к Япию, и нашел корабль, отправлявшийся в Тарсиса. Oh, can anyone hear me? Susan is saying that she can't hear me. Ellen, can you hear me? You're muted.
Can you hear me?
Oh boy, hold on a second. We can't hear you. Okay. Try again, Ellen.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
You
Now
can
I
hear
can.
me?
Yep, Susan, what's up?
Rabbi Jim, what time can we eat tonight?
Well, it depends. I mean, usually we wait until after Ne'ilah. But if you're feeling very sick, you should eat.
But what time do we eat? What time is the proper time to eat? When the sun goes down?
When the sun goes down, exactly.
I know some.
When the sun goes down, exactly.
Can you hear me now? Rabbi
What?
Jim, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Rabbi Jim, there's nothing wrong with me. I just wanted to let you know that Ellen
Great.
couldn't hear you.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate it. It was set for, the microphone was set the wrong way, so you could hear us, but we couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I'm always fine.
Great, okay. Отдал плату за провоз и вошел в него, чтобы плыть с ними в парсис от лица Господа. Ну почему? Right? Why did Jonah not want to serve God?
Is this the front desk?
What, Ellen?
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to someone on the phone.
Oh, then maybe we should mute them.
There's bugs in my... Can I put in an order for... Yeah.
Oh, you go. Okay. All right. So we don't have necessarily an answer to that question, right? Why did Jonah decide not to serve God? Go ahead, Arthur.
Because he was afraid the people of Nineveh would be angry with him.
Right. He doesn't want to go to Nineveh. Right. What happens to prophets when they go and they tell people that they're doing the wrong thing?
They get rejected.
They get or worse, or stoned. Right.
Stone.
Who wants to listen to a prophet? Right. Prophets are nothing but trouble.
Especially when you're telling.
367. 367. Но я вам дам эту книгу.
Спасибо большое. Спасибо.
Right. So, right. If they, what did I say? 367. Okay. So prophecy is not a good business, right? It's not a good business. All right. So there may be other reasons as well, but I like that reason. Right. I like that reason as a reason to start. All right. All right. So we don't. Господь воздвиг на море крепкий, на море великие буря, и корабль готов был разбиться. Right? But Adonai cast a mighty wind upon the sea, and such a great tempest came upon the sea that the ship was in danger of breaking up. Right? So God is not happy, right, that Jonah is doing this. Устрашились корабельщики и вызвали каждый к своему богу и стали бросать в море клад с корабля, чтобы облегчить его от нее. Йона не спустился во внутренность корабля, лег и крепко заснул. Ну вот такой человек, большая буря, да, и он спит. Очень странно, да? And I'm saying, what a strange man, right? What does he do? Right? In their fright, the sailors cried out, each to his own God, and they flung the ship's cargo overboard to make it lighter for them. Jonah, meanwhile, had gone down into the hold of the vessel, where he lay down and fell asleep. This strange man, right, who on one hand, he doesn't want to be bothered to be a prophet at all, right? So, but he ends up sleeping in the midst of a huge storm. The captain went over to him and cried out, "How can you be sleeping? Up, call on your God," right? Right? Everybody has their own God. Maybe one of the gods will help out. Perhaps the God will be kind to us and we will not perish. И пришел к нему начальник корабля и сказал ему, что ты спишь? Встань, воззови к Богу твоему. Может быть, Бог вспомнит о нас, и мы не погибнем. And the crew said to one another, well, let's and notice, what does Jonah say in response? Nothing, right? Jonah doesn't even speak. It's almost as if he doesn't wake up. The crew said to one another, let us cast lots and find out on whose account this misfortune had come upon us. They cast lots and the lot fell to Jonah. Oh, excuse me 1 second. Okay. And they said to him, tell us, you who have brought this misfortune upon us, what is your business? Where have you come from? What is your country? And of what people are you? I am a Hebrew, he replied. I worship Adonai, the God of heaven, who made both sea and land. The crew was greatly terrified, and they asked him, what have you done? If you pray to Adonai, right? If you pray to Adonai and that God is mad at you, we must be in big trouble. И сказали друг другу, пойдем бросим жребий, чтобы узнать, за кого постигнет нас эта беда. И бросили жребий, и пал жребий на Иону. Тогда сказали ему, скажи нам, за кого постигла нас эта беда? Какое твое занятие? И откуда идешь ты? Где твоя страна? И из какого ты народа? И он сказал, я еврей. Я еврей. Да? Я еврей, жду Господа Бога небес, сотворившего море и сушу. И устрашились люди страхом великим и сказали ему, для чего ты это сделал? Ибо узнали эти люди, что он бежит от лица Господня, как он сам объявил им. And when the crew learned that he was fleeing from the service of Adonai, for so he told them, they said to him, what must we do to make the sea calm around us? For the sea was growing more and more stormy. He answered, heave me overboard, and the sea will calm down for you. For I know that this terrible storm came upon you on my account. Nevertheless, okay, so и сказали мне, что делать нам с тобою, чтобы море утихло для нас, ибо море не переставало волноваться. Тогда он сказал им, возьмите меня и бросьте меня в море, и море утихнет для вас, ибо я знаю, что ради меня постигла вас эта великая буря. Oh, очень интересно. So why does Jonah say, throw me overboard? How is that possibly the best solution? Any ideas? Or can you think of other solutions that maybe he could have suggested instead?
One way of having them kill him.
Yeah,
Rabbi Jim,
yeah,
can you hear me?
yeah.
He wanted to go overboard because he thought he was the cause, and if he went overboard, then it would be all right.
Yes, right. But it's interesting, right? Because he seems to be, as I think it was Bernie, he seems to be suggesting that that they kill him, right? They could, I mean, in theory, he could say, oh, well, turn back and I will, I'll pay, extra or whatever, right? But he seems to one of two things, right? Either he seems to want to die, right? He has some sort of desire to drown and be dead, right? Sort of a death wish, right? The other option, right, is that he has faith in God, right? That even though he's fleeing from God, he trusts that, oh, well, throw me overboard, things will calm down for you, and God will save me somehow, right? Yeah, go ahead, Bernie.
Conceivable also that the crew would not want to throw him overboard.
100%.
And therefore, they would row harder, it says here.
Yes.
And he rowed harder. So as a result, they were making a choice too
Yes,
in doing this.
right.
So there's a couple of interpretations. of that.
100%. Well, that's the next thing, right? The next verse goes, as Bernie has pointed out, right? Nevertheless, the crew rowed hard to regain the shore, but they could not, for the sea was growing more and more stormy about them. Right. So it's quite possible, right, that maybe there was even a thought, oh, we'll go back, right? But that's not going to happen. Go ahead, Arthur.
I think he knew that he was under God's protection, even though he was in the process of disobeying God. When he went down to go to sleep and he slept soundly during a wild storm that the sailors were so scared about, it suggests some other presence was protecting him.
Yeah, right. He has some, as we know, because he's Jonah, right? We know what happens next, right? And so maybe that he doesn't really care. It's the belly of a whale, it's the belly of a ship, wherever I am, I'll be able to sleep. So which is very interesting, right? Because so on one hand, he appears to have this death wish. On the other hand, he appears to have this incredible faith in God, right? That even though he's running away from God and doesn't really want much to do with God, right? Still, he seems to have a faith that, unless he is completely suicidal, which is possible, I suppose. But the men don't want to kill, right? There's a really strong taboo, right? You don't kill people, right? Of course, unfortunately, we do all the time, but in normal circumstances, right? We generally do everything we can to save the life of another person. Right? Then they cried out to Adonai, oh, please, Adonai, do not let us perish on account of this fellow's life. Do not hold us guilty of killing an innocent person, right? Very important principle, right? That if you kill another person, if that person is innocent, right, then you will have guilt upon you. And this is among the reasons why they're so worried about throwing him overboard. For you, Adonai, by your will have brought this about. And they heaved Jonah overboard and the sea stopped raging. The crew feared Adonai greatly and they offered a sacrifice to Adonai and made vows. All right, so let me just read the rest of that. Yeah, go ahead, Ruth.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Но эти люди начали усиленно грести, чтобы пристать к земле, но не могли, потому что море все продолжало бушевать против них. Тогда возвали они к Господу и сказали, молим Господу, да не погибнем за душу человека сего, и да не внемлешь нам кровь невинную, ибо ты, Господи, создел что угодно тебе. И взяли Йону и бросили в море, и утихло море от ярости своей. И устрашились эти люди Господа великим страхом, и принесли Господу жертву, и дали обеты. И повелел Господь большому киту поглотать Йону. И были Йона в чреве этого кита 3 дня и 3 ночи. Right, so the crew feared Adonai greatly. They offered a sacrifice to Adonai and they made vows. Right, and Adonai provided a huge fish. Right now, the Russian translation that I just read translates it according to probably not according to the Hebrew, but to the Latin or the Greek, and it says that it's a whale, right? But in Hebrew, it's a dog, right? This is already, sorry, everybody who's on Zoom. We're already up on page 369. Okay. So Adonai provided a huge fish, a dog gadol, right, to swallow Jonah, and Jonah remained in the fish's belly 3 days and 3 nights. So Jonah is happy in his whale or happy in his fish, right? There he is. Right, and what does he do? he prays to God. He prays to God. And also, we'll just read this quickly. In my trouble, I called to Adonai, who answered me. From the belly of Sheol, I cried out, and you heard my voice. You cast me into the depths, into the heart of the sea. The floods engulfed me. All your breakers and billows swept over me. I thought I was driven away out of your sight. Would I ever gaze again upon your holy temple? The waters closed in over me. The deep engulfed me. Weeds twined around my head. I sank to the base of the mountains. The bars of the earth closed upon me forever. Yet you brought my life up from the pit. Oh my God, Adonai. When my life was ebbing away, I called Adonai to mind, and my prayer came before you into your holy temple. They who cling to empty follow forsake their own welfare, but I with loud thanksgiving will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will perform. Deliverance is Adonai's. And Adonai commanded the fish, and it spewed Jonah out upon dry land. Phew, he made it. All right, so I'll just read that poem in Russian, and then we can talk about it a little bit. И помолился Йона Господу Богу своему из чрева кита. И сказал: Господу возвал я в скорби моей, и он услышал меня из чрева преисподней я возопил, и ты услышал голос мой. Ты вверг меня в глубину, в сердце моря, и потоки окружили меня, все воды твои и волны твои проходили надо мною. И я сказал: отринут я от очей твоих, однако я опять увижу святый храм твой. Объяли меня воды до души моей, бездна заключила меня, морскою травою обвита была голова моя. До основания гор я не шел, земля своими запорами навек загради мои, заградила меня. Но ты, Господи Боже мой, изведешь душу мою из ада. Когда изнемогла во мне душа моя, я вспомнил о Господе, и молитва моя дошла до Тебя, до храма святого Твоего. Чушь суетных и ложных богов оставил милосердного Твоего, а я гласом хвалы принесу Тебе жертву, чтобы шал исполнил у Господа спасение. И сказал Господь киту, и он изверг Иону на сушу. Okay. So what kind of a prayer is this?
It's a prayer for help.
It's a call for help, right? On one hand, it's a call for help. On the other hand, it's a celebration of the fact that God responded to that call, right? So this word, right? Karati mitzarali el Adonai va'aneni, right? That in my trouble, right? How do they say it in Russian? In my skorbimaye, right? In the midst of my trouble, I call out to God, and God answers me, right? This is like on Yom Kippur, right? Jonah is sort of talking about the prayers that we say on Yom Kippur, right? But with the, I don't know if it's a difference or whatever, right? But that God has already answered them, right? He's sort of expressing his great faith in God, right? Because why does Jonah have faith in God? Because God responded to him, right? He thought that he was done, right? He thought he was, and we've all felt this way, right? Maybe we haven't been thrown into a big storm in the ocean, right? But we've all had moments when we felt completely helpless and as though things are at an end, right? And then And then we find, right, that somehow a prayer gets answered. Somehow we feel feel saved, feel like we're able to re-emerge, right, from the belly of this depression, right? It's very interesting, right, that there's this, on one hand, the fish is a symbol of Jonah's distress, right, and his being stuck at the bottom of the ocean, right? On the other hand, though, the fish is what saves him, right? It's what God has sent to deliver him from his. So it's very complicated, right? Because it's, on one hand, it's a good thing, on the other hand, it's a bad thing, and teasing that out can be very complicated. All right. So in the third chapter of Jonah, right, the word of Adonai came to Jonah a second time, right? And this time he doesn't say no. Go at once to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim to it what I tell you. Jonah went at once to Nineveh in accordance with Adonai's command. Right? He tried running away. God followed him, chased him down, grabbed him, sent him back. He said, okay, now I got to go. Right? Now I got to go. Nineveh was an enormously large city, a 3 days walk across. So if you were to walk, maybe not, if an average person was to walk from here to the other end of Boston, how long would it take? Does anyone know?
No.
Not even. Half a day, right? And Boston's a very big city geographically, right? Because Boston kept on grabbing other cities, right? So if you start at Oak Square in Brighton and walk all the way down, I don't know, maybe walk all the way to East Boston or maybe to Dorchester, right, it'd take you 12 hours, but so imagine a city, 3 days, right? It's an enormously big city, right? And so here we begin to sort of get a sense that as is often the case in the Bible, right, especially in some of the smaller books, right, there's some things here that are maybe a little funny, right?
Hyperbole.
I'm sorry?
Hyperbole.
Hyperbole, right? A little bit of hyperbole, a little bit of tongue in cheek, right? So I mean, a whale, of course, that can swallow you and keep you alive, right? We went past that without even really paying attention to it, right? This fantastic thing that happened. So why not a city that's three days walk across, right? So Jonah started out and made his way into the city the distance of 1 day, right? He made it a third of the way through the city and proclaimed 40 days more and Nineveh shall be overthrown. That's it. И было слово Господне к Йоне вторично: «Встань, иди в Ниневию, в город великий, и проповедуй в ней, что я повелел тебе». И встал Йона и пошел в Ниневию по слову Господню. Ниневия же была город великий у Бога, на 3 дня ходьбы. И начал Йона ходить по городу, сколько можно пройти в 1 день, и проповедовал, говоря, еще 40 дней, и Ниневия будет разрушена. И это тоже очень странно, да, потому что то, что там происходит сейчас, потому что Артур сказал, кто хочет быть пророком, очень трудное дело, никто не хочет слушать тебя, но вот здесь он говорит, что через 40 дней это будет все, и поверили ниневитяне Богу, и объявили пост, и оделись во вратища от большого из них до малого. Right, so what I was saying in Russian is that it seems very, very crazy, right? Arthur said kind of before you were here, but maybe the reason that Jonah didn't want to do what God said was because he didn't feel like being in the role of the prophet. No one likes a prophet, right? But here, Jonah is the most successful prophet ever. There's never been a prophet in history right, who shows up and everybody just listens to him right away, right? And that's what happens now, right? If you turn to page 370, which is 370, right? The people of Nineveh believed God. They proclaimed a fast, and great and small alike sackcloth, right? Immediately it happens. So, and very important, right? What do we do on Yom Kippur when we want to be granted forgiveness and absolution? We fast, right? So that's what the Ninevites do. And remember, the Ninevites are not Jews, right? The Ninevites are not, these are not other Jews. These are other people, right? Which raises a whole other question, both in the book of Jonah, but also for Yom Kippur, right? Why do we, why does God care so much about these non-Jews, right? It's very interesting, right? That very often, we have this sort of sense of Jews really only caring about Jews, but of course, we see that Jews here are reading about Ninevites, who are not just not Jews, right? They're enemies of the Israelites, right? They're not our buddies by and large. And when the news reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, took off his robe, put on sackcloth, and sat in ashes. He had the word cried through Nineveh. By the decree of the king and his nobles, no human or beast of flock or herd shall taste anything. Now, who here for Yom Kippur makes their dog fast? Yet he doesn't use now. I can discuss that. I don't know how to say it in Russian. Right? So we never make our animals fast. Right? So the Ninevites are going one better, right? They're going one further. Right? And this is again, Connie said the word hyperbole, right? It's over the top, right? Go ahead, Bob, yeah. Okay. И это слово дошло до царя Ниневия, и он встал с престола своего и снял с себя царское облачение свое, и оделся во вратище, и сел на пепле. И повелел провозгласить и сказать в Ниневе от имени царя и вельмож его, чтобы ни люди, ни скот, ни воли, ни овцы ничего не ели, не ходили на пастбе, и воды не пили. Ой, they don't even get to drink water. Right? They don't even get to drink water. They shall not graze, and they shall not drink water. Right? So which is very interesting. So we find here in the book of Jonah, and this is another question that I think is worth asking, right? Why does the book of Jonah include the animals? And this is not the only point in the book where we talk about animals as well as humans, right? So I find it very interesting that the king here, right, includes animals as well as people in the fast. They shall be covered with sackcloth, human and beast, right? So it's not just the humans that need to wear the uncomfortable clothes. We have to put the beasts in the clothes, which they don't wear, presumably they don't wear anyway, right? And they shall cry mightily to God. Let everyone turn back from their evil ways and from the injustice of which they are guilty. Who knows, but that God may turn and relent, right? That God may turn and relent. God may turn back from wrath so that we do not perish. Right? So, which is very interesting, right? That the Ninevites have this understanding of God, right? As in a sense, did the sailors, right? That God might be wrathful, but God can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Calm down. Right? That God can change his mind, that our behavior what we do has an effect on God. То, что мы делаем, влияет на Бога.
And we're God's image,
Right,
so it's reflected.
right. It goes back and forth, right? So, воды не пили, и чтобы покрыты были вратищем люди из скот, и крепко вопияли к Богу, и чтобы каждый обратился от злого пути своего и от насилия рук своих. Кто знает, сказал царь, может быть, еще Бог умилосердится и отвратит от нас пылающий гнев свой, и мы не погибнем. И увидел Бог дела их, что они обратились от злого пути своего, и пожалел Бог о бедствии, о котором сказал, и наведет на них, и не навел. Right? Very interesting. The translation is a little different here. God saw what they did, how they were turning back from their evil ways, and God renounced the punishment that had been planned for them and did not carry it out. In the Russian, it has the sense of he sort of pitied them. He felt a little bit sorry about it and decided not to do it. Here, he just renounces it. Very interesting that they change their behavior and God changes God's decree. In a hyperbolically, as just you go back to that word again, simple way, right? They're terrible. They change their minds. Oh, they're great.
What does hyperbole mean?
I'm sorry?
What does hyperbole mean?
Hyperbole means to sort of overdo it,
Exaggerate.
Oh,
to exaggerate, right? So, like, it's a great city. It's a great big city. It's so big, it takes 3 days to walk across it, right?
okay.
We need to have a fast. We need to call a general fast in the town, and it's not just the people that will fast, it's also the animals need to not eat. Okay. All right, so up till now, it all seems very good. Like this is the outcome we were hoping for, right? That this is a great Yom Kippur story, right? We pray, we say we're going to change our ways, we fast, and God takes notice, right? And changes and softens the decree, right? Not going to destroy the city, not going to, going to give us a new leaf on life, but this displeased Jonah greatly, and he was grieved. Jonah сильно огорчился этим и был раздражен. Right? Jonah is mad. Yes, why? Right? Very interesting. И молился он Господу и сказал: «О Господи, не это ли говорил я, когда еще был в стране моей? Потому я и побежал и фарсис, ибо знал, что ты Бог благий и милосердный, долготерпеливый и много милостивый, и сожалеешь о бедствии». Right? So what does he say? He prays to God saying, "Oh, Adonai." Like, it's not like, "Oh, Adonai." It's like, "Adonai, I'm so mad at you." Right? Isn't this just what I said when I was still in my own country? That is why I fled beforehand to Tarshish, for I know that you are a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in kindness, renouncing punishment. All right. Very, very interesting. He's mad because God is a gracious God. Right? It doesn't make a lot of sense, right? The only thing I have to say is that there are these situations, right, where people think that other people should be punished, or maybe people even think that they should be punished, right? And the punishment never comes, and people are angry. Right? Yeah, go ahead. Bernie, want to say something, or are you just itching? Yeah. But just to point out, right, why, so this is my answer as to why we read this on Yom Kippur, right? Because when it says in Hebrew, right, ki yadati ki ata el chanun v'rachum erech apayim v'rav chesed v'nicham al hara'ah, right? If you go back just a few pages, if you go to page, I'm sorry, it's going to take me a little while to find one. Yeah, page 336. Page 336, you'll see that multiple times during the day of Yom Kippur, we read what's called the 13 attributes, the Shlosh Esrei Midot. Sorry, I didn't put this forward. All right, and when we say those words, right, this comes from the book of Exodus, right? Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed, and so on and so forth, right? It's longer in Exodus than it is in the book of Jonah, right? But Jonah is clearly making reference to this notion of God, right? God not as a punisher, but as a God who forgives, right? A God who doesn't want to be the fire and brimstone God that we've seen so many times, earlier in the Bible. Right? But for whatever reason, right, this makes Jonah. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm wondering, maybe this is because God wants Jonah to repent and to repent.
That's
Like way he sees things.
maybe that's really interesting. I mean, I'm confused. I'm every year I'm confused by Jonah's reaction to this, right? Because Jonah has been sent to ask other people to repent. He does that unwillingly, but he does do it, right? And immediately they repent. Right? I mean, most priests and rabbis and other clergy would be thrilled with Jonah's capacity. Right? He says 4 words, and the entire culture changes, right? And he's mad.
And then at the end, it's that he gives Jonah the reason why he needs to be forgiven.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, right when we get to the end, we hear sort of God's I mean, I don't want to say God's justification, right, for being merciful, right? But you're right that it's a very
And yet we pray this holiday that God should be merciful.
right. And we're always, on one, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting game that we play with ourselves, right? In regards to this, right? Because on one hand, we are fairly well convinced. We read the book of Jonah, right? We read again and again that God is merciful, right? And yet we have this, and I think in a sense, this is getting to a little bit of what Jonah's about, right? There's this part of us that doesn't buy it. Right? There's this part of us that still thinks we're going to be punished, still thinks that we're not worthy, right, of continuing life, right? And that little part of us, right, might be sort of the Jonah in us, right? That is like, no, really, God, you don't understand. I say all these things, and I say that but you, I mean, really, I kind of know that I'm bad, right? And it takes sometimes, like, not to fall into that trap, right? That you really want to, the tradition wants us to buy it, right? That we can find forgiveness, we can find atonement.
But you have to have compassion for yourself.
Right. And in that sense, right, this is what I think Jonah lacks. Right, because the next lines, right, what does he say? Please, Adonai, take my life, for I would rather die than live. Right? And Adonai replies, are you that deeply grieved? It's a very interesting question. Right? Now, we don't ever hear Jonah's answer. This is one of those times the Bible is so, doesn't say very much. Right? So in Russian,
Maybe he wants us to think about it.
right, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. So, и ныне, Господи, возьми душу мою от меня, ибо лучше мне умереть, нежели жить. И сказал Господь, неужели это огорчило тебя так сильно? Right. And right, and as you said, right, that there's no response from Jonah. Right. So in a sense that it sort of, the question is really for us. Right. Sure, the Ninevites are enemies, right? Sure, they're not Jewish, but really, do you want to see them be destroyed? Right? Is that better somehow than God proving once again that God is a merciful God? It's an interesting question. Now, Jonah had left the city and found a place east of the city. He made a booth there and sat under it in the shade until he could see what happened to the city. God Adonai provided a ricinus plant which grew up over Jonah to provide shade for his head and save him from discomfort. Jonah was very happy about the plant. I love that. He's ready to die. Oh, there's a plant. I'm happy. But the next day at dawn, God provided a worm which attacked the plant so that it withered. And when the sun rose, God provided a sultry east wind, and the sun beat down on Jonah's head and he became faint. And he begged for death again, saying, I would rather die than live.
I don't get why he provides the plant and then takes away the plant. What's that point?
Well, actually, that's interesting, right? So what is it? God seems to be wanting to teach Jonah a lesson. What's the lesson he's teaching him? It's a great question, right? И вышел Йона из города и сел в восточной стороне у города и сделал себе там кушу и сел под нею в тени, чтобы увидеть, что будет с городом. И произрастил Господь Бог растения, и оно поднялось над Ионою, чтобы над головою его была тень, и чтобы избавить его от огорчения его. Иона весьма обрадовался этому растению. И устроил Бог так, что на другой день при появлении зари чрев подточил растение, и оно засохло. Когда же вошло солнце, навел Бог знойный восточный ветер, и солнце стало налить голову Ионе. Так что он изнемог и просил себе смерти и сказал, лучше мне умереть, нежели жить. Еще раз, right? Еще раз. Again, he asks for death. Right? The first time, right, because God wouldn't destroy Nineveh, right? And the second time, right, because God did destroy the plant. Right? And in both times, right, those decisions on the part of God make it impossible for Jonah to continue living. Right? И сказал Бог Ионе, неужели так сильно огорчился ты за растение? И он сказал, очень огорчился, даже до смерти. Right? And God said to Jonah, are you really so deeply grieved about the plant? Yes, he says, so deeply that I want to die. And here's the answer, right? A little bit mysterious, but it is the answer. Тогда сказал Господь, ты сожалеешь о растении, над которым ты не трудился, и которого не растил, которое в одну ночь выросло, и в одну же ночь и попрало. Мне ли не пожалеть Ниневии, города великого, в котором более 120 тысяч человек, не умеющих отличать правой руки от левой, и множество скота? And Adonai said, you cared about the plant which you did not work for, which you did not grow, which appeared overnight and perished overnight. And should I not care about Nineveh, that great city in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not yet know their right hand from their left, and many beasts as well? Right? So again, the beasts. Right?
He's comparing the plant and even that?
Well, that's what, and I think what, and that's another sort of, it's a sort of more even more hyperbole, right? Is that God is demonstrating, right, to Jonah, right, that you're worried about this plant, right, that just popped up one day, disappeared, right? You nothing to do with you, right? But here's the city, which, you know, all these people are my creations. Everything that's in the city, right? The people and the animals are all things that I care deeply about. And so you just think that it's too much for you to go and warn them, to get them to change, right? Whereas, you know, because you're God's servant, you don't think you should have to do that. So I find it very interesting, but it's really, it seems to me, very much about the narrowness of Jonah, right? And the narrow way that we think about our lives, right? We don't think about our lives all the time about all the other people, right? You know, we're very focused on our own comfort, right? In our own sense of, you know, oh, I don't want to be bothered, right? And so Jonah becomes sort of us, right? And it's a way, I think, of the tradition to say to us, we should be better, right? We should try to do better than Jonah does in this situation. All right. Any final thoughts?
So why is it included on this part? You talked about that.
On Yom Kippur?
Yeah.
Ruth, you want to say something?
No, I was gonna ask you something else.
Okay. Well, I think it's included on Yom Kippur because Jonah is, I think, in a way, sort of, even though he's a prophet, right? He sort of represents us,
Yes.
you know, and how even though it should, in a sense, be this great gift that God is this tremendously compassionate and forgiving God, right? That we take it for granted, right? And we get waylaid, we get confused and think that, oh, you know, this little thing that didn't work out for me, it makes me so crazy, I want to die. And we don't think, like, wait a second, the stakes are much bigger than this, right? We blow everything up into these crazy, you know, and so Jonah, I think it gives us an opportunity to sort of think about what really matters.
You have to prioritize.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Ruth.
Why would he be so upset if God's not forgiving? Wouldn't that be, that's so irrational? Because if I do something wrong, I want to be forgiven. I don't want to just have someone say, you have no more chances, that's it.
Right,
But I mean, he doesn't want God to be forgiven. That doesn't make sense.
right. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. It really doesn't. But I think in a sense, right, it's, you know, asking Jonah to be rational is basically asking us to be rational.
Right, that's true.
Because humans, with all the great things we are, right, are often not very with it on this.
But as a prophet, you want people to say, oh, he's giving a bad word, but then he's saying, yes, but God will forgive you. So
Right.
he's giving a good word.
Right.
Who knows how people feel?
Exactly. There we go. Okay, so we will get started with Yizkor now. Yeah. Oh, it's all Yizkor all day for me. And if you have names, in the book, please grab one. Do you put names in? Okay. Oh, that one died. Why did it die?
Not only do you have to be a rabbi now you have to be a technician.
I tell you, it's.
And they didn't give those courses in rabbinical school, didn't they?
They did not. They definitely did not.
Something's gonna change.
Definitely did not. All right, so we are gonna go here. Come on. Okay, great. Good. I'll put these people back up on the screen. There they are. Hello, everybody. Okay. And I'll put this up here. All right. Here we go. Now I'm going to share this screen here. So Yizkor tottered Kaddish, Tory and reaper of the wild apple field, messenger from earth-mired gleam, transcripts of fog. In the 19th year, the 11th month, speak your tattered Kaddish for all suicides. Praise to life, though it crumbled in like a tunnel of ones we knew and loved. Praise to life, though its windows blew shut.
Is this the front desk? This is Ellen Kahn in apartment 107, and I have a lot of bugs in my bathroom. They need to be exterminated. They're just flying around.
Where did it go?
It's apartment 107, 6.
Praise to life, though its windows blew shut on the breathing room of ones we knew and loved. Praise to life, though ones we knew and loved it badly, too well and not enough. Praise to life, though it tightened like a knot on the hearts of ones we thought we knew loved us. Praise to life, giving room and reason to ones we knew and loved who felt unpraisable. Praise to them how they loved it when they could. Adonai madam v'tadehu ki ben enosh v'tachashvehu Adam lahev dama yamin ketzelore v'boker yatzitz v'chala la'erev yimoler v'yavish למנות ימינו כנודע ונביא לבב חוכמה שמותם וראי ישר כי אחרית לאיש shalom. Adonai, what is a person that thou hast regard for him, or the child of man that thou takest account of her? A person is like a breath, her days are a fleeting shadow. In the morning she flourishes and grows up like grass. In the evening, she is cut down and withers. So teach us to number our days that we may get us a heart of wisdom. Mark the person of integrity and behold the upright, for there is a future for the person of peace. In this solemn hour consecrated to our beloved dead, we ponder over the flight of time, the frailty and uncertainty of human life. We ask ourselves, what are we? What is our life? To what purpose are our wisdom and knowledge? Wherein is our strength, our power, our fame? Alas, we seem born to trouble and our years are full of travail. But our great teachers have taught us to penetrate beneath appearances and to see the higher worth, the deeper meaning, and the abiding glory of human life. We'll turn to page 4. מה אנוש כי תזכרנו, ובן אדם כי תפקדנו, ותחסרהו מעט באלוהים, וכבוד והדר תעתהו. Adonai, what is a person that thou art mindful of him, and a child of man that thou considerest her? Yet thou hast made him a little less than divine, and hast crowned her with glory and honor. Yea, thou hast implanted in humans the faith to overcome disillusionment and despair, the power to resist evil, the wisdom to use our gifts nobly, and the will to transform chaos and misery into harmony and happiness. When we loose the bands of wickedness, free the oppressed, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, bring cheer into the lives of those in distress. When we strive for justice in the coming of thy kingdom, we invest our lives with high significance. Physically, we are like unto a breath, but spiritually we can attain divine heights. Our God and God of our mothers and fathers, in this hour sacred to memory, when the past and the future merge, we thank thee for the blessings that have come to us, the love and devotion of our dear ones. For many of us, this hour recalls the memory of beloved parents whom thou hast removed from their earthly tasks and called unto thyself. There are those among us who call to mind a departed husband or wife. They recall the affectionate bonds formed in thy presence, the faith and understanding, the struggles and hopes, the trials and griefs, fears and joys they shared together. Page 5. There are parents in our midst who mourn a beloved child or grandchild taken from them in the freshness and vigor of youth, for whom they planned and hoped, upon whom they lavished loving care and affection. There are also those who we call a sister or brother, now no longer among the living, with whom they grew up in happy fellowship. Companions who shared with them the experiences of childhood. With tender emotion, we recall friends and companions who were dear to us in life, and whose friendship and understanding were a constant benediction to us. In this solemn hour, we recall members of our congregation, of our community, who have answered thy summons. They shall ever be remembered in the sanctuary which they loved and served. We reverently recall the martyrs of Israel of all ages, whose ranks were tragically augmented by untold numbers of our brothers and sisters in the Shoah. Never shall we forget those who sacrificed their lives for the sanctification of thy name. We remember also the heroes and righteous men and women of all nations who lived and died for justice, truth, and peace. Though our departed are no longer with us, their memories are forever enshrined in our hearts, and their influence abides with us, directing our thoughts and deeds towards the lofty purposes they cherished and for which they strived. Let's continue together. O Adonai, as we recall all our departed and the blessings they bequeathed unto us. We pray thee to keep their souls united with ours.
May our faith light there. All up for Zion conscience.
And our concern for Israel cease. For as we identify ourselves with the life, hopes, and traditions of
people. Focus on the aspect of eternity.
so that years draw to a close, we shall be remembered for good and for blessing.
Amen.
I wear my hair long. My mother always wore her hair cropped. Mine she braided into tight into rubber bands. The mistrust of hair was general then. My grandmother had hair like Rapunzel that she let down cascading before she climbed into bed with me. Loosely braided around her head all night. At night it tumbled free. Giving off an odor of lavender and something else, almost musky, signifying at 80 and blind she was still a woman. She taught me Hebrew prayers. She taught me Lilith, the Golem, Dibbicks, flying rabbis, raping murderous Cossacks, blood in the shtetl, curses, escapes. History and legend were braided into one thick, musky rope that led me back to where she was born. Back into ghosts and demons and fierce flaming angels and love, laughs on love. So we'll sing this song now. Remember that. At the rising of the sun, and in its going down, we remember that. We remember that. At the blowing of the wind, and in the chill of winter, we remember that. We remember that. At the opening of the buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember that. We remember that. At the blueness of the sky and the warmth of summer, we remember that. We remember that. At the rustling of the years and in the beauty of autumn, we remember that. We remember that. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember that. We remember that. As long as we live, they shall live. Oh, they now part of us as we remember them, as we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. We remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. We remember them. We have decisions that are difficult to make. We remember them. We remember them. When we have joy that we crave to share, we remember them. We remember them. And we have achievements that are based on them. We remember them. We remember them. For as long as we live, they too shall live. For they are now a part of us as we remember them. As we remember them. Now we'll take a moment for Yizkor. There's various Yizkor for on the pages 8 and 9. There's different various versions of the Yizkor prayer you can use for your mother, for your father, and for other relatives. On the screen, I'll put the one for other relatives. You can use that for the mother and father too. So we will turn now to page 10. We will remember now the 6 million who perished in the Shoah. I invite you to rise as you are able. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen B'Meromim, Amtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah. V'malot kedushim u'torim k'zohar rakia mazichrim l'nishmot kol acheinu b'nei Yisrael shenitbechu b'shoah anashim nashim v'tam shenechneku v'shenisrfu ושנהרגו, שמסרו את נפשם על קידוש השם, שלחו לעולמם, בגן עדן תהי מנוחתם. אנא בעל הרחמים, אסתיכם בסתר, כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, ינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם, ונאמר אמן. And now we will turn to El Malei Rachamim for all those who have died. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen B'Meromim, Amtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah, V'malot kedushim u'torim k'zohar rakia mazichrim l'nishmot kol ele she'izkarnu hayom livracha shalechu לעולמם. בגן עדן תהי מנוחתם. אנא בעל הרחמים, אסתיכם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתם, אדוני נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם, ונאמר אמן. Give me one moment, sir. And this I'll just read I'll read El Malei Rachamim in Russian. О Боже, всемилостивый, обитаешь в высотах, предоставь достойную обитель под крылями присутствия Твоего, среди святых и чистых, сияющих, словно чистый небесной, душе всех, которые мы напомнили сегодня, которые ушли в вечность. В раю да будет обитель их, да укроет их всемилостивый под крыльями своего присутствия и да поместит их душу в удел живых. Бог да будет удлин их и пусть покоится на Божьем своем мире. И скажем аминь. So we'll turn now back to page 11. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsa, Bino deshe yabitzeni amemenu chodyen haleni nafshi yishoveh nafshi yishoveh yancheni v'magale tzedek l'ma'an shelo gam ki elech b'ketz hamavet lo ira ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha shivtecha umishantecha הם ירחמוני תערוך לפניי שולחן תערוך לפניי שולחן תערוך לפניי שולחן נגד סוחר נשענת Vashem in Roshi, Santa Vashem in Roshi, Dishanta Vashem in Roshi, Kosi Chevaya, Achto Bachesed. Yedifuni koyemechaya vishavti bevet Adonai vishavti bevet Adonai leorech yamim. So before the mourner's Kaddish, I thought that we could пожалуйста. Ой, я очень жалко. Я надеюсь, что станет легче вам. Okay, so I thought we would read the names of the people who are the people in the room put in the, so. So Yifim. Это Басия Пятигорский, Бела Пятигорский, Мото Пятигорский, Daniel Пятигорский, Хая Мануха Грабовский, Хая Исаксон, Моша Брискин и Матвей Пятигорский. What's the names of you put? Zalman Garelik, Manya Shegelman, Simeon Garelik, Israel Vitkin, Raya Vitkina, Victor Vitkin, Grigory Feinberg, Ludmila Orlik. And then Zhenya, хотя она уже ушла, Ефим Златкин, Исаак Райнин, Любовь Райнина и Хая Либерман. And then Connie, Marty Rabinovitz, Greg Doyle, Pat DeFlormenti, Louise Landau, Gabe Bedauer, Dorothy Wojtek, and Janice Weiss. I didn't know that Janice had passed. When did that happen? Oh boy, I didn't hear. Baruch Dayan HaEmet, very sad. So would anyone else that we would like to add for Mourner's Kaddish? We're on page 12. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shnei Rabban, Yalmad, Yivrach, Yoteh, Yamlech, Maputeh, V'chayechon, Yivnachon, V'chayeh, L'chol Beit Yisrael, V'adalau b'zman k'achiv v'imrami. Yehi shmei rabim v'rach v'alam onei amayim. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'trumam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei likudsha v'rechu le'ela le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata v'amiran v'yolama v'imrami tikabal tzloton v'muton v'chol beit Yisrael v'dam v'buhon v'yishmael v'imrami Yehi shlam rabba min shemayim v'chaim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imrami v'aseh shalom v'mal hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen. Spasiba Ban, thank you everybody for being here. And thank you, Robert and Bob, it's great to see you. Susan, I don't know if Ellen is still with us. Nikolai, Ikraris, thank you to everybody. And it looks like Ellen has already left. All right, so I will see some of you back at 100 Center Street. Others, I will see another time. Spasiba. Да. Возьмите, пожалуйста.
I'm gonna take one for Jean Freer
Please, please.
and one for
Take one for anyone who.
Bernie. And I just heard from Jeremy, I could have texted as I was leaving
Ah.
school this morning. So it went well.
Good, good.
And she was awake.
Well, that's not uncommon, right, for brain
I
surgery?
don't know.
Yeah.
She was awake and she tolerated that very well.
Yeah.
So now they just have to do the pathology, but
Ugh.
the physician thinks he got it.